Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about leatherworking and drums in World of Warcraft Burning Crusade Classic Beta. And I say beta because it is still subject to change. Blizzard introduced greater drums in the beta. People data mined that. They found the recipes. They found the greater drums themselves. They also saw that the regular drums were green quality. They had an 8-yard range. And apparently they also have a cast time, though plenty of people are talking about how they actually are working differently than intended in the beta so far. But that's what people are saying, and I'm not necessarily sure you can trust right now what some people are saying in the beta, unless they actually provide hard evidence, like someone just talking about like, oh, one of my guildies tested this out and this is how it's playing out. Yeah, I want to actually see people use drums in a raid, see how that plays out before making any hard judgments. And anyway, it's a beta, might be some issues, might be some bugs. Things are subject to change. I mean, there was an XP bug. Blizzard has already fixed that in the beta. People are earning far less experience than they should have, and Blizzard has already fixed that. So betas, issues might prop up. Blizzard will likely fix them. But one of the things that came up, obviously, is the data mining of greater drums, and people were concerning, and that's one thing, right? When you data mine something, okay, maybe that's something that's going to be in the game, maybe it won't be in the game, maybe Blizzard is just testing the waters. But then someone asked on the forums if a blue post can confirm these drums, and Kvax, the community manager, confirmed them. Confirmed, leatherworking drums have been a hot topic since we first started working on Burning Crusade Classic, since they would make leatherworking feel mandatory. In the first few patches of original TBC, the drums had a cast time and smaller radius, which limited their effective use. Leatherworking was an unattractive profession at the time, so the drums were improved in 2.3. That led to the fond memories we all have of drum rotations as one of the added layers of teamwork in later TBC encounters. Right now, in the TBC beta, all leatherworking drums now have an uncommon and rare version. Our current thinking is that the great versions will be acquired via recipe drops from Zul'Aman. While it's true that we are generally planning on implementing items and spells and maps and everything else in their 2.4.3 state, this one stood out as something we should make an exception for. By default, we don't want to change the behavior of items from patch to patch. So we think the right thing to do is introduce the greater drums as a new item so that the behavior of the original items doesn't have to change. Now, this, to react to this, here's what I think. I believe that what Blizzard is thinking with this is that, oh, we're going to have the original versions of drums, the ones that have only an 8-yard range, so you have to be within 8 yards to actually get the effect, and have a cast time. Blizzard is thinking, oh, we'll do that, and so leatherworking will be less mandatory, right? Because that's what happened on retail. Once they buffed the drums, leatherworking became far more used. But here's the thing about that. They are flat out wrong. Like, if Blizzard's thinking, oh, people will not feel leatherworking as mandatory, that just no. And if Blizzard had actually bothered to ask anyone that has either played or led a guild on a Burning Crusade server over the last couple of years, they would have told them that as well. I've led the guild on one of these servers. Any raider will tell you that even with progressive itemization making the drums worse, people still use them. Because guess what? They're still very, very powerful because you still get the same benefit. That you have a fucking cast time and an 8-yard range does not change how powerful drums are. Yes, slightly less useful on certain boss encounters, but Blizzard clearly doesn't know what they're doing here. Or maybe they're thinking, well, this is what the community did back in the day. Yes, but the community didn't know better back in the day. People didn't realize, oh, if we have 20 plus people in the raid with leatherworking, then we can get an enormous benefit from drums of battle, right? We can gain a massive output increase with drums of battle. But the community didn't realize how powerful haste was initially, didn't realize how powerful hunters could be initially, didn't realize how powerful Destro locks could be initially. People didn't realize many of these things. I mean, you look at old Burning Crusade videos, the top DPSers are bloody Shadow Priests. Shadow Priests, not forget Rogues. Shadow Priests are topping the damage meters in old Burning Crusade videos. Look at the Illidan killed by Nihilum, and you will see that. That's not going to happen in PC Classic. So clearly, maybe some of the people that work at Blizzard are working on this Maybe they have played BC on retail. Maybe they understand, maybe they're drawing based on those experiences. And maybe this is the middle ground that Blizzard is seeking, because they think, well, we still want to have drums of battle in the game, because sure, people may not need drums for tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, which they didn't need on retail to clear that content, but they quite likely will need to clear Sunwell Plateau. So not having drums of battle, just flat out removing them or nerfing them in some way, that's also not going to work. But the problem is with these nerfed drums that we'll have for tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, they're still very powerful. And I'll tell you this, the 8-yard range means very little on the vast majority of boss encounters. If you're just looking at tier 4 tier 5, there's only 3 bosses where it really actually matters. Gruul, because of the shatter effect, so you need to spread out. Hydrus, because he has an Ice Tomb ability that he does in the Frost phase, which targets a random people and freezes everyone in that area, in a small area, so you can't stack there. And Lady Vashj, because of her lightning spell, which means you have to spread out, and also because of the phase 2. Every other boss you can stack for pretty much the entire fight, or the vast majority of fights, or long periods of fight. And here's the thing, even on those bosses where you have to spread, even on Gruul, even on Hydrus, even on Vashj, you can still have people grouping up, getting the drums buff, then spreading out. Clearly, the people that are working in Blizzard either don't know what they're doing, or they maybe know what they're doing, if I'm being generous here, if I'm being kind, but they still want to have drums for long term, right? For the sake of Sunwell. That's also a factor people shouldn't ignore. There's a lot of people right now thinking, oh, BC will be easy as pie. No, it won't. As someone who has played Burning Crusade 3 times, retail, 2 private servers, has done everything from tier 4 to Sunwell Plateau, the idea that Burning Crusade is going to be a cakewalk, as some people think it will be, that's completely false. It will be difficult. It will actually be difficult from the start, dependent on the tuning Blizzard can go. It might be so difficult dependent on the tuning that people will just walk into McFerrin's lair and hard wipe on the trash. So don't underestimate Burning Crusade, and especially don't underestimate Sunwell Plateau. It has a reputation of being a very hard raid for a reason. Now, maybe without drums, Sunwell Plateau would actually be so difficult that it would maybe, like, obviously it's going to be easier than retail, but doesn't mean people are just going to smash through the entire raiding content. If drums are nerfed, they might have a more difficult time, and maybe that would actually be fine. But what Blizzard is doing is just stupid. Honestly, if they had done nothing, if they had literally kept drums as they were at the end of Burning Crusade, this wouldn't be an issue. But what they're doing is, they're going to have a cast time. So the person who's casting them is going to lose a bit of output. Maybe people are going to lose a bit of output because they have to move on a few boss encounters. And maybe on a few boss encounters, they won't be able to benefit from them. But here's the thing about drums. You can still use them on trash, right? I mean, one of the things that's important for people is clearing raids quickly when it comes to Classic. And drums will play a major role in that. Not just drums of battle, drums of restoration as well. So Blizzard doing this changes nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just makes them more frustrating for people. But they're still important. They're still powerful. Now, if the concern is, if Blizzard's bloody concern is, and if the community's concern is, oh, I don't want leatherworking because it's mandatory, but if Blizzard's concern is, well, we still want to have them for Sunwell Plateau because we feel people will want them or need them for Sunwell Plateau, then just don't have them until Zul'Aman. Just don't have them in the game. Introduce them then. That's a better and more elegant solution than a lot of the things that people have suggested. Oh, remove the leatherworking requirement for drums. Like, you don't need leatherworking to use drums. That just means people gain more power. Or the idea, make them so they're raid war, not party wipe. Again, that makes it more powerful and doesn't fix the issue because you will still want 20 leather workers. Then you'll just use multiple sets of drums of battle. You'll use battle, you'll use resto, you'll use war, right? You'll use all of those. You'll still have 20 people doing those drums. Now, there are solutions, but honestly, this issue is ridiculous. Because if leatherworking is no longer mandatory, then something else is going to be. Now, people will say, oh, leatherworking is so much more powerful than any other profession. Yeah, so is engineering in Classic. So is engineering in Wrath of the Lich King. So is X profession and X expansion, and Z expansion. Every expansion, especially when we're talking about these older versions of the game, many expansions have some kind of mandatory profession that is vastly superior to anything else. In Classic, it's engineering. In TBC, it's leatherworking. In Wrath, it's engineering. And if it's not leatherworking in TBC, it will be engineering as well, or it will be enchanting. Or a combination of two. You might just have the min-max approach might just be go enchanting, get your rings enchanted, then swap to engineering. And yeah, I get it. You know, some people don't like that. I admit I'm not necessarily fond of it myself. But that's how these older versions of the game are. Now, now I personally feel that this is an issue that's greatly exaggerated when it comes to these older versions of the game. I think if people feel such a need that they desperately need to have leatherworking, and if the community as a whole is concerned about the idea that, oh, it's going to become mandatory because the community is going to be so try-hard, then maybe that's not an issue with the profession. Maybe it's not the issue with world buffs in Classic, or maybe it's not the issue with engineering in either Classic or Wrath of the Lich King. Maybe the issue is the community itself. And maybe the problem is there. Maybe the fix should be with the community as opposed to what the game actually is. But I mean, the community is what it is because people want to raid quickly and efficiently and want to get through the content quickly. But there's such an extreme level. There is a reasonable level with that, and then there's an extreme level. Like mandating everyone have leatherworking is something that should only matter in guilds that are actually pushing for something. Speedruns, world first, something like that. Not for the vast majority of raiding guilds, at least not until Sunwell Plateau. I mean, because we cleared all the content on retail. People cleared all the content, even top guilds cleared all the content without leatherworking until Sunwell Plateau came along. It shouldn't be needed. But the fact that people are acting as if it's needed by everyone on every skill level, that's ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous as people requiring world buffs for a Molten Core Pug when AQ is out and people are decked in AQ gear or Nax gear or anything like that. It's just as ridiculous. And we've seen that in Classic. Again, the issue, from my perspective, is an issue. If this is a problem that people are concerned about, then maybe the concern should be with the community and the state of the community and the way people act, rather than a profession or another. Because if it's not going to be leatherworking, as I've said, it's going to be something else. Something else is going to be the mandatory profession, and there's no escaping that unless you make sweeping changes to the way the game is. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.